Okay, this is how to service an undercarriage of an excavator, whether it's Volvo, Cat, or Komatsu, or John Deere. They're all going to be very similar, if not the same. So my particular problem that I've had here is I have this idler that had blown up the bearings inside of this. Now you can see this is a 330 excavator. It's a pretty big machine. What has happened here is the bearings have grenaded in here, and it has started to wear my pin. You see how big around that pin is? It's probably a 3-inch pin, and it is worn that pin completely through to the point where it's almost snapped. It's only about an inch now. So a way to tell that that bearing is blown up is I'm going to walk around and show you on this excavator. This excavator, this side of the track is fine. If you look down in there, you do not see any of the flaring going on. Okay, if that's gone, you can feel that bearing is shot, and it'll make a lot of noise on that idler as you track forward or backward. Puts a lot of stress on your final drives. Okay, this is where it sits, down inside these channels of the track frame. Okay, before you want to insert this, you're going to want to clean this all up. But to get this off, well, how do I go about doing that? If you're in a filled truck like mine and you don't have a track press, which I do not, you have to derail it, and that can be a pain. But the technique that I've used, and it works pretty good for me, is on this tensioner in this idler. If this is your first time, there is a grease zerk that sits right back here. Okay, and there's a nut, and where that sits on the open track frame is right there. You can access it through this hole. I want to stick in there and I want to loosen that up, and you'll actually see your track up here on top start to sag as you loosen it. And then you jump in your machine, use your bucket, and you're just going to push. If this was this track and I was trying to derail it, I'd set my bucket right here and I'd push against it really slowly and push that idler back in. This is your idler, and you have a chain, you have a track tensioner right here, and that's the coil spring that you see with the grease piston in it. And you're going to slowly push this in, and it's going to squeeze out all the grease in that piston and allow your track to become loose. At that point, now this is if you don't have a track press. Track press, you put on these chain links, you press out the master link, and that track will open up, which is way easier. But I don't have one, and so you can get by. It takes about 40 minutes to, I don't know, depending on how good you are, to derail a machine this big, and then it probably takes a little bit longer to put it back on, maybe an hour. Okay, but if you don't have it, it's okay, don't worry about it, you can still do this. Okay, so what we got here, bearing is exploded from Arnold Machinery. I've got my new bearing, my new assembly right here, which is an idler, and it comes with this new bearing, and it also comes with your new, I don't know what you want to call it, bushing or whatever, track bushing to keep just, I don't know what they call this. This assembly right here is called your idler, and it comes equipped. This right here has no wear marks on it, so it might even tighten up your idler, keep your track roll minimum from rocking. Okay, so I got two of them. I'm going to change them both, because if this one blew up at 12,000 hours, that one's probably not far behind it. So I want to do them both together. Now, of course, if your expenses aren't quite there, you can get away with just doing one. Okay, I would highly recommend either resealing this or regreasing it, but because of the time frame that I have, I'm not able to reseal that. I'm going to use the same one. Okay, so how to get it off of here? After you take your track off, you can wrap a chain directly around your roller and run it right through here, and it will just slide out. There's nothing holding that in except for the track. When the track's off, this whole assembly will slide out. Okay, this is called a chain tensioner. If you ever need to frame track a tensioner or rail tensioner, and this part right here is called your idler. Okay, that's what I'm going to be changing. There's only 4 bolts that hold these on. Okay, there's 2 right here and 2 on the other side. I literally take that off and put the other one on. Not real hard. When I slide it in, I want to make sure that my grease zerk is facing on the outside of the hole so that you can get grease to it. If not, you'll have to pull it all around and do it again. So it's easier to make sure that that is going in the right way before you put it in. While I have it off, I'm going to be changing my sprockets. I should be changing my rails on my tracks, but because of affordability and time frame, I'm not able to do that. This is a new sprocket. It's OEM from Volvo. Okay, I'm going to put it on there. When I do that, I highly recommend changing all the bolts. I actually have some bolts coming, and as you put these on, you want to use a red Loctite with a 1-inch gun, and you're just going to go through there and put them all back on how I took it off. So here's my new one. The way to check to see if they're still good is you'll have a land on top. You'll have a flat mark. You can just see how big and beefy they are. A wore out one is what they call knife edged. And you can start getting these sharp points. Okay? And they're going to start breaking off. You can see a few of them that are almost to that point. Okay? Once they start breaking off, you'll have a dead spot in your track. And as one breaks off, the second one behind it will break off. As you try to climb a hill, and you won't have anything to actually spin your track. It'll just sit and spin on your rails, cause damage. Okay, so once you do that, once you want to change these, this is how you just service it. While you get it up in the air like this, you can throw a board under here, which would be a good idea to keep it from falling. You're going to want to inspect all your rollers, make sure everything spins freely, but you don't want it loose, okay? If this wiggles at all or has any kind of movement in it, you need to take it off and change it. These ones generally come right here. You can just loosen this nut, and that whole piston, it has a whole bearing in the back side of this with a shaft, and that shaft just comes out. You can knock it with a hammer. They actually come out pretty easy. And these track frames down here, you want to grab them and you want to tug on them, make sure there's no movement. You also don't want to make sure that they're seized, that they roll. They'll have some tension on them. Okay, them are all good. I've checked all these. I just want to go down all of them and check them. Okay, I like doing things once and not twice. So when this is done, I'll get another, without changing these rails, I might get another 5,000 to 6,000 hours on this machine before I need new rails. By doing this, it'll just, it's definitely not a band-aid, but you want to change these two together, the sprocket and the rails together generally. But again, just because of your finances, you're sometimes maybe only able to do just the sprockets, which will get you by, but you do want to do them together. So this is the video on how to service your undercarriage on an excavator. Okay, whether this is a big machine or a small machine, they're generally the same, whether different brands, okay, Hitachi, Volvo, Cat, Komatsu, John Deere, Hyundai, they're all going to be similar, if not the same, some variation. Okay, and this is my video. Like and subscribe, and I'll see you next time.